Water. There's a lot of it in Tears of the Kingdom. Oceans, lakes, ponds, spicy water, but one thing has always irked me. What's underneath all of these water-strewn areas? Is it anything other than broken geometry and weird texturing? Join me as I explore underwater using a free cam mod to find potentially secrets and potentially new discoveries. And without further ado, let's dive right in. Get it? Dive right in. The first location I want to check out is Skull Lake. It's a unique location, with large purple flowers being visible beneath the water's surface. These were also in Breath of the Wild, but you could usually never get a good look at them. But hey, now I can. From this perspective, we can see that the flowers are not really connected to anything. You may notice that the environment is looking a bit purple as well, which is just a feature of the game where being near brightly colored objects can change the environment's color. You can easily see this with the dye pots in Rito Village, where standing in them can change the environment color, with the purple one being the most noticeable. For those of you who might be colorblind, all I can say is, just trust me, bro. This is a bit of an abrupt detour, but I want to talk about how water in the game works. Beneath most surfaces lies what I like to call water hills. Basically, the way the developers made the game, they had a ground layer and a water layer. Both are present at mostly all times. Because of this, they could easily use whatever tools they had to drag the ground and water layer up and down. And since the water layer was always available, this made it easy to mold lakes and rivers, which had the side effect of producing water hills, which are these parts. That's what we can see here with this lake. They dragged the ground layer downwards to create a dip, and then dragged the water layer upwards, forming a lake. You might ask how this works with the Sky Islands. The solution for that is to just not use the water layer at all and just place squares of water everywhere instead. Next is Lake Hylia. What lies beneath the raging cyclone? Wow. There's not much in the way of how these work. Basically, when you reach around this area, you're transported to whatever location it might be linked to. In this case, it's here. And the cyclone isn't even lined up with the waterfall. Literally unplayable. If you're wondering, this is pretty much the same exact way that quicksand cyclones work. As for the rest of Lake Hylia, there's not really too much to see. The bridge supports go under the lake itself, which isn't too surprising. Venturing a little ways away from the lake reveals some interestingly shaped water hills. Oh hey look, it's Fairhosh. The Great Plateau has some mud on it. Let's take a look at that for a bit. There's not too much under the surface, but checking the mud reveals that it's connected to some water hills. This basically reveals that all mud in the game is just water, but with some extra properties to make it mud. This also explains why it looks like water on the map instead of being brown. Let's check out Lurelin now, with a clear view of the coral. I'm not sure how the boat got the monsters here, considering the boat is clipping through the ground. Heading further into the ocean from here, we can find what I like to call the spires. These things are awkwardly erected from the ground, which I assume is why they show up on the minimap. It's not clear what their purpose is at first, but I managed to figure it out. At first you might think it's for the wing minigame at Eventide, but doing the minigame shows that the target is a fair distance away from any of the spires. However, checking out all three of them, I realized it. These are most likely used as anchor points for the enemy spawns and fish around the ocean. Otherwise they would have to anchor it onto something like over here, which wouldn't be very convenient. I'm also assuming they have to anchor enemies instead of just plopping them in the world because of engine limitations. The southward spire has a ton of fish at it. 16 mighty porgy and 14 armored porgy, for a total of 30 fish. That means if you try to kill them all at once using a shock fruit or something of the like, it's very likely that a lot of them will despawn. I checked out the other two spires, and they don't really seem to have much. Just a few enemies and a few fish. However, there is this additional fourth spire near the Scimitar Dragon tier. This one has a bunch of fish, just like the southern spire, and strangely doesn't appear on the map. No idea why. Now for what you probably expected to be in this video, Zora's domain. There's actually not a whole lot inside of the water near the domain. Following the river downward doesn't reveal much either. But I did find this Octrock bugging out for me whistling. I will name him Kevin. The East Reservoir also sports some interesting geometry, and here you can see when the glowing pillar ends. The waters of Tarrey Town have a little bit to offer. There's some ruins under this lake here, but the rest of the nearby river is pretty empty. Nearby the construction site there are quite a few water hills, which makes me wonder if this area was originally intended to be more flooded. There's also a few rocks here that are a bit oversized for how much you can actually see. Next is Typhlo Ruins, which as you might expect, is the same deal as the Great Plateau Mud, with the mud being connected to water hills. The developers went kind of a bit overkill for this one because they made the pits extremely deep. Beneath Rito Village lies a bunch of weird geometry, especially this bit here, which looks like a fence, or a large earthy comb. I would do the main quest to clear all this ice, but I really can't be bothered, and there's probably nothing interesting behind the ice anyways. Probably. Let's check out the Eldin depths now. Yes, I know it's lava. I want to look at it anyways. Peeping underneath the lava, there's a large sort of film that's directly underneath it. I assume this is here because the top layer of lava is partially transparent, and this layer makes it so you can't see through the lava. Here's a view of the huge lake underneath Death Mountain, and the lava beneath the fire temple. Now for the Lynel Colloseum. There's quite a bit of water here, with the transition to a more earthy texture being more visible on the side of the Colosseum. Underneath the Colosseum itself, there is a large, gloomy half-circle. I have no idea why this is here, but I went to check out the other Colosseums, and they had them too. These probably have a purpose, but I don't have any clue what that purpose could be. The bottomless lake underneath the Great Sky Island is, get this, not bottomless. I can't believe Nintendo would lie to me. How could they do that? The lily pads are a similar deal to how the flowers in Skull Lake are, kind of ending at a point. Underneath the ground, there are even remnants of the giant skull structure that was visible in Breath of the Wild. Neat. Okay, so the other stuff I had recorded wasn't interesting enough to voiceover, so here's an assorted compilation of some other underwater areas. Enjoy. Yeah, that's everything I have to show. Okay, have a nice day, bye-bye.